Once again, there are new images of Osama Bin Laden inside that compound just out. And experts say they show a, quote, pathetic side of the world's most wanted man. You can see Bin Laden watching television in one image, huddled under a blanket. That is him on TV. U.S. officials believe he spent hours on the computer and relied on couriers to bring him information from the outside world. And Mike Baker is a former CIA operative and with me now. How you doing, Mike?
Good morning to you.
I tell you what, just watching this stuff unfold over the weekend, I was spellbound by it. What did you take away?
Well, I'm kind of conflicted, right? I mean, part of me is the same way. I'm fascinated by what we're seeing, but my background and my time spent with the agency says we don't need to know this. I'm puzzled to some degree by the administration's desire to kind of manage this release of information when in reality it's a serious labor-intensive effort to gather actionable intelligence off of this trove of information. And I don't know that we need to be holding press conferences on a regular basis talking about what we're finding.
Well,
to me, that's puzzling.
Let me ask you, what are the risks to putting out the information that's been released so far, do you think?
Well, I mean, as long as they manage it properly, I suppose. Ultimately, they're very smart, and nobody in the community is going to release anything that's going to compromise potential operations. I suppose maybe it's just a different time. I guess I'm puzzled by it. I don't think that it actually will impact negatively on our efforts. You can be sure that they've already scoured, done this first, second scrub of as much material as possible, looking for those bits and pieces that they can take out to the field immediately. And, what we're not seeing, what's off the radar screen, is all that hard work that's going on right now. I mean, honestly, the intel community, the teams, the military, they celebrated what happened, last week.
And then they got back to work, I would imagine.
Back to work.
There's another question that's pertinent here now. Why are they doing this the way they're doing it, do you think?
You know what? I don't know. I'd be all speculation on my part in terms of trying to divine what the administration is doing.
Politics? Is it credit for the operation?
Well, it could be. It could be that there's this sense that we have to feed the machine, I suppose, maybe in terms of people want to know. I understand that fascination, but ultimately, there is a tremendous amount of material. You can see how it kind of gets spun around. We're seeing these images of Bin Laden huddled under a blanket, and suddenly people say, well, he doesn't look so dangerous. This man was the most dangerous terrorist out there in the world. And we are seeing from this that he was more operationally involved than we thought. Collective wisdom for years has been he's been sitting in a cave somewhere, disconnected completely from the outside world and serving only as a figurehead, and leaving the operations to others. Now, I don't want to make too much of the fact that, he wasn't day-to-day, planning operations and moving logistics and resources around. He didn't have that ability. But he was playing more of a role than we thought, it appears.
Yeah, I think also, not just what happened here in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, but this man inspired the killing and the murder of thousands of people in Iraq, in Afghanistan. His mere words sent people in the markets to blow themselves up.
Right. Absolutely.
Regardless of who was in there. Now, Lawrence Wright wrote a great book called The Looming Tower. I recommend it to everyone. If you want to understand the history of al-Qaida, I think it's terrific. Earlier today on ABC, he said Bin Laden has always been very careful about controlling his own image. But the images we're now seeing, just to use Lawrence Wright's words, are the most revealing and most human and least controlled moment of his entire career. You've studied him. Do you agree with that?
I think that's correct. I think it's fascinating that not only was he holding these tapes of himself watching TV, but he was also a bit of a pack rat in terms of the amount of information that he was storing. It showed to some degree, and this is an important point, it showed to some degree the comfort that he had in this compound over the years that he was staying there, which then leads you, sort of that dotted line, to the question of why was he so comfortable there? Was there some feeling that he had top cover, from elements of the Pakistani intel service and military? Again, I find it inconceivable to think that they didn't know, some people didn't know that he was there.
He did a very good job of covering his tracks once he was in that compound. We know that now.
An image the White House wants the world to see. Apparently a dishevelled and much diminished Osama Bin Laden watching himself on TV. The footage was edited by the Pentagon and released without sound. It's said to be one of 5 videos found in Bin Laden's compound. The image was front-page news in Pakistan today, but in Abbottabad, where he met his end, there was plenty of scepticism. It's all a fake. Nothing happened, said Mohammed, who's been selling newspapers here for 50 years. Shabir says it's a case of mistaken identity. He claims the man in the picture is his neighbour.
His name is Akbar Khan. He owns the house they said was Osama's house. I know him very well.
If the aim was to persuade the doubters, it didn't work here.
This picture is not Osama.
It's very suspicious.
This picture.
It is very suspicious, and it is made by advanced technology.
Made by computer?
By computer, yeah, ma'am.
We've now spoken to more than 50 people in the market, and only one believes that the man in the video watching television was in fact Osama Bin Laden. People here say the Americans haven't proven anything. They haven't shown Bin Laden's dead body. Many still don't believe that the al-Qaida leader was living here or that he was killed here. It's unclear when and where the videos were made. Tonight, President Obama said Bin Laden must have had some sort of support network in Pakistan, perhaps involving people in government, which must be investigated.